Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel, otherwise known as the Haven. Everything that is connected consciously with Krishna is spiritual. And therefore, when we hear the pastimes of Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, we are actually in the spiritual world. And therefore, we feel great relief from the pangs of the material energy. So let us continue this hearing and chanting, which is the most important of all the 9 processes of devotional service, together, and help purify this anxiety-filled world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took full shelter of the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. He thought so highly of it that he offered us this poetic glorification, not to be taken literally. We need Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, but this glorification is poetic. It exalts the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. The story goes that when Srinivas Acharya and Srila Narottam Das Thakur and Shyamananda Pandit took the teachings of the 6 Goswamis out of Vrindavan for the first time by carrying the books in a bullock cart. They very carefully packed the books, obviously, and they put the Caitanya-caritämrta on the bottom so that it would be the most protected. And then it was stolen, the box that had the books. And Srinivas Acharya fearlessly went to the kingdom of Vishnupur and met the king, and by the sweetness of his personality and his knowledge, the king's heart melted. And when he found out, he took him to the chest where the books were. And when they opened it, the Caitanya-caritämrta was on the top. So the story goes. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, in due course, Mahāpralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or if you cannot hold all 3, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after the flood has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we reached the Antya-līlā, chapter 10. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepts Prasādam from his devotees. The following summary of chapter 10 is given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Before the Rath Yatra ceremony, all the devotees from Bengal started for Jagannath Puri as usual. Raghava Pandit brought with him various kinds of food for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The food had been cooked by his sister, Damayanti, who then packed it in bags, jali. Thus the stock of food was generally known as Raghavera Jali, the bags of Raghava Pandit, the bags of Raghava. Makaradwaj Kara, an inhabitant of Panihati who accompanied Raghava Pandit, was the secretary in charge of accounting for the Raghavera Jali. The day when all the devotees arrived at Jagannath Puri, Lord Govinda was enjoying sporting pastimes in the waters of the lake known as Narendra Sarovara. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu also enjoyed the ceremony in the water with his devotees. As previously, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu performed the cleansing ceremony at Gundicha and chanted the famous verse, Jagamohan Parimundayao. After kirtan ended, he distributed prasadam to all the devotees and took some himself. Then he lay down at the door of the Gambhira to take rest. Somehow or other Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, crossed over the Lord's body and massaged his feet. Govinda could not go out that day, however, and therefore he was unable to accept prasadam. From the character of Govinda, it is to be learned that we may sometimes commit offenses for the service of the Lord, but not for sense gratification. Govinda induced the Lord to eat all the food delivered by the devotees of Bengal for his service. All the Vaishnavas used to invite Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to their homes. The Lord accepted the invitation of Chaitanya Das, the son of Shivananda Sen, and ate rice and yogurt there. Text 1. Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanyam Bhaktanugraha Kataram Yena Kenapi Santushtam Bhakta Dattena Shradayam. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is always pleased to accept anything given with faith and love by his devotees, and is always ready to bestow mercy upon them. Text 2. All glories to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. The next year, all the devotees were very pleased to go to Jagannath Puri, Nilachala, to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya Gosai led the party from Bengal. He was followed by Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Srivas Thakur, and other glorious devotees. Text 5. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu had ordered Lord Nityananda to stay in Bengal, but nevertheless, because of ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda also went to see him. Text 6. Indeed, it is a symptom of real affection that one breaks the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not caring for the regulative principles to associate with him. Text 7. During the rasa dance, Krishna asked all the gopis to return home, but they neglected his order and stayed there for his association. Text 8. If one carries out Krishna's order, Krishna is certainly pleased, but if one sometimes breaks his order due to ecstatic love, that gives him millions of times greater happiness. Vasudev Datta, Murari Gupta, Gangadas, Shriman Sain, Shriman Pandit, Akinchana Krishnadas, Murari, Garuda Pandit, Buddhimanta Khan, Sanjaya Purushottama, Bhagavan Pandit, Shuklambar Brahmachari, Nishingananda Brahmachari, and many others joined together to go to Jagannath Puri. It would be impossible to mention the names of all of them. Text 12. The inhabitants of Kulinagram and Kanda also came and joined. Shivananda Sain took the leadership and thus started taking care of all of them. Raghava Pandit came with bags full of food, prepared very nicely by his sister, Damayanti. Damayanti made varieties of unparalleled food, just suitable for Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to eat. The Lord ate it continually for 1 year. 15 and 16. These are the names of some of the pickles and condiments in the bags of Raghava Pandit. Amra Kashandi, Ada Kashandi, Jala Kashandi, Nembuada, Amra Koli, Angsi, Amakanda, Tailamra, and Amasata. With great attention, Damayanti also made dried bitter vegetables into a powder. Text 17. Do not neglect sukata, because it is a bitter preparation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu derived more happiness from eating this sukata than from drinking panchamrita, a preparation of milk, sugar, ghee, honey, and yogurt. 18. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he extracts the purpose from everything. He accepted Damayanti's affection for him, and therefore he derived great pleasure even from the dried bitter leaves of shukata and from kashandi, a sour condiment. Text 19. Because of her natural love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Damayanti considered the Lord an ordinary human being. Therefore she thought that he would become sick by overeating, and there would be mucus within his abdomen. Purport. Because of pure love, the devotees of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, Brajabhumi, loved Krishna as an ordinary human being like them. Yet although they considered Krishna one of them, their love for Krishna knew no bounds. Similarly, because of extreme love, devotees like Raghava Pandit and his sister Damayanti thought of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a human being, but their love for him was boundless. By overeating, an ordinary human being becomes prone to a disease called amla pitta, which is a product of indigestion characterized by acidity of the stomach. Damayanti thought that such a condition would afflict Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 20. Because of sincere affection, she thought that eating this sukta would cure the Lord's disease. Considering these affectionate thoughts of Damayanti, the Lord was very pleased. 21. A dear lover strung a garland and placed it on the shoulder of his beloved in the presence of her co-wives. She had raised breasts and was very beautiful, yet although the garland was tainted with mud, she did not reject it, for its value lay not in material things, but in love. Purport. This is a verse from the Caitanya-caritämrta by Bharavi. 22. Damayanti powdered coriander and anise seeds, cooked them with sugar, and made them into sweetmeats in the shape of small balls. 23. She made sweetmeat balls with dried ginger to remove mucus caused by too much bile. She put all these preparations separately into small cloth bags. She made 100 varieties of condiments and pickles. She also made koli shunti, koli churna, koli kanda, and many other preparations. How many should I name? She made many sweetmeats in the shape of balls. Some were made of powdered coconut. Some were made with powdered coconut, and others looked as white as the water of the Ganges. In this way she made many varieties of long-lasting sugar confections. Text 26. She made long-lasting cheese, many varieties of sweetmeats with milk and cream, and many other varied preparations, such as amrita karpura. She made flat rice from fine, unboiled shali paddy, and filled a large bag made of new cloth. She made some of the flat rice into puffed rice, fried it in ghee, cooked it in sugar juice, mixed in some camphor, and rolled it into balls. Whoa. 29:30. She powdered fried grains of fine rice, moistened the powder with ghee, and cooked it in a solution of sugar. She then added camphor, black pepper, cloves, cardamom, and other spices, and rolled the mixture into balls that were very palatable and aromatic. 31. She took parched rice from fine paddy, fried it in ghee, cooked it in sugar solution, mixed in some camphor, and thus made a preparation called ukda or mudki. Another variety of sweet was made with fused peas that were powdered, fried in ghee, and then cooked in sugar juice. Camphor was added, and then the mixture was rolled into balls. 33. I could not mention the names of all these wonderful eatables, even in a lifetime. Damayanti made hundreds and thousands of varieties. Text 34. Damayanti made all these preparations following the order of her brother, Raghava Pandit. Both of them had unlimited affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu and were advanced in devotional service. 35. Damayanti took earth from the Ganges, dried it, powdered it, strained it through a fine cloth, mixed in aromatic ingredients, and rolled it into small balls. Oh my gosh. 36. The condiments and similar items were put into thin earthen pots, and everything else was put into small cloth bags. From small bags, Damayanti made bags that were twice as large. Then with great attention, she filled all the large ones with the small ones. She then wrapped and sealed each and every bag with great attention. The bags were carried by 3 bearers, one after another. Wow. 39. Thus I have briefly described the bags that have become famous as Raghaveda Jali. 40. The superintendent for all those bags was Marakadwaj Kara, who kept them with great attention, like his very life. Text 41. Thus all the Vaishnavas from Bengal went to Jagannath Puri. By chance, they arrived on the day when Lord Jagannath performs pastimes in the water. Boarding a boat in the water of Narendra Sarovara, Lord Govinda performed his water pastimes with all the devotees. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu arrived with his personal associates to see the jubilant pastimes of Lord Govinda in Narendra Sarovara. At the same time, all the devotees from Bengal arrived at the lake and had a great meeting with the Lord. All the devotees immediately fell at the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord lifted them and embraced every one of them. The Gaudiya Sampradaya, consisting of all the devotees from Bengal, began congregational chanting. When they met the Lord, they began to cry loudly in ecstatic love. Because of the pastimes in the water, there was great jubilation on the shore, with music, singing, chanting, and dancing, creating a tumultuous sound. Indeed, the chanting and crying of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas mixed and created a tumultuous sound vibration that filled the entire universe. 49. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu entered the water with his devotees and began his pastimes with them in great jubilation. In his Chaitanya Mangala, now known as Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur has given a detailed description of the activities the Lord performed in the water. Text 51. There is no use in again describing here the activities of the Lord. It would simply be repetitious and would increase the size of this book. 52. After concluding his pastimes in the water, Lord Govinda returned to his residence. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple, taking all his devotees with him. Purport. The deity referred to herein as Govinda is the Vijay Vigraha in the temple of Jagannath. When there is a need to take Jagannath somewhere, the Vijay Vigraha is taken because the body of Jagannath is very heavy. The Vijay Vigraha in the Jagannath temple is known as Govinda. For the pastimes in Narendra Sarovara, the Vijay Vigraha was carried there instead of Lord Jagannath. Text 53. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence after visiting the temple of Jagannath, he asked for a large quantity of Lord Jagannath's Prasādam, which he then distributed among his devotees so that they could eat sumptuously. 54. After talking with all the devotees for some time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked them to occupy the individual residences in which they had lived the previous year. 55. Raghava Pandit delivered the bags of eatables to Govinda, who kept them in a corner of the dining room. 56. Govinda thoroughly emptied the bags from the previous year and kept them in another room to fill them with the other goods. Govinda thoroughly emptied the bags from the previous year and kept them in another room to fill them with other goods. 57. The next day, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went with his personal devotees to see Lord Jagannath when Lord Jagannath arose early in the morning. After seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began his all-encompassing Sankirtan. He formed 7 groups, which then began to chant. Purport. For an explanation of the Veda Sankirtan, one may refer to Antya-līlā, chapter 11, verses 215 to 238. Text 59. In each of the 7 groups was a principal dancer, such as Advaita Acharya or Nityananda, Lord Nityananda. Text 60. The dancers in the other groups were Vakreshwar Pandit, Achyutananda, Pandit Srivas, Satyaraj Khan, and Narahari Das. 61. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walked from one group to another, inspecting them, the men in each group thought, "The Lord is within our group." 62. The congregational chanting made a tumultuous sound, roar, that filled the sky. All the inhabitants of Jagannath Puri came to see the kirtan. 63. Accompanied by his personal staff, the king also came there and watched from a distance, and all the queens watched from the elevated parts of the palace. 64. Due to the forceful vibration of kirtan, the entire world began trembling. When everyone chanted the holy name, they made a tumultuous sound. Text 65. In this way the Lord had congregational chanting performed for some time, and then he himself desired to dance. Text 66. The 7 groups began chanting and beating their drums in 7 directions, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began dancing in the center in great ecstatic love. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remembered a line in the Orissa language and ordered Sarup Damodar to sing it. Jagamohan Pari Munda Yao. Let my head fall at the feet of Jagannath in the Kirtan hall, known as Jagamohan. Simply because of this line, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing in greatly ecstatic love. People all around him floated in the water of his tears. Raising his 2 arms, the Lord said, "Chant, chant." Floating in transcendental bliss, the people responded by chanting the holy name of Hari. 71. The Lord fell to the ground, unconscious, not even breathing. Then suddenly he stood up, making a loud sound. 72. The hairs on his body constantly stood up like the thorns on a shimula tree. Sometimes his body was swollen, and sometimes lean and thin. 73. He bled and perspired from every pore of his body. His voice faltered. Unable to say the line properly, he uttered only Jajagaga Parimumu. 74. All his teeth shook as if each were separate from the others. Indeed, they seem about to fall on the ground. His transcendental bliss increased at every moment. Therefore, even by mid-afternoon, the dancing had not ended. 76. The ocean of transcendental bliss overflowed, and everyone present forgot his body, mind, and home. Then Lord Nityananda found a way to end the kirtan. He gradually stopped all the chanters. Thus only one group continued chanting with Sarup Damodar, and they chanted very softly. When there was no longer a tumultuous sound, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to external consciousness. Then Nityananda Prabhu informed him of the fatigue of the chanters and dancers. Understanding the fatigue of the devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped the congregational chanting. Then he bathed in the sea accompanied by them all. 81. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took Prasādam with all of them, and then asked them to return to their dwellings and take rest. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu lay down at the door of the Gambhira, and Govinda came there to massage his legs. It was a steady, long-standing rule that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would lie down to rest after lunch, and Govinda would come to massage his legs. Then Govinda would honor the remnants of food left by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. 85. This time, when the Lord lay down, he occupied the entire doorway. Govinda could not enter the room, and therefore he made the following request. Govinda said, "Kindly turn on one side, let me pass to enter the room." However, the Lord replied, "I don't have the strength to move my body." Govinda made his request again and again, but the Lord replied, "I cannot move my body." 88. Govinda repeatedly requested, "I want to massage your legs." But the Lord said, "Do it or don't do it. It depends upon your mind." Then Govinda spread the Lord's wrapper over his body, and in this way entered the room by crossing over the Lord. Govinda massaged the Lord's legs as usual. He pressed the Lord's waist and back very softly, and thus all the Lord's fatigue went away. 91. As Govinda stroked his body, the Lord slept very nicely for about 45 minutes, and then his sleep broke. 92. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw Govinda sitting by his side, he was somewhat angry. Why have you been sitting here for so long today?" the Lord said. "Why didn't you go to take your meal after I slept, after I fell asleep?" the Lord asked. Govinda replied, "You were lying down, blocking the door, and there was no way to go." The Lord asked, "How did you enter the room? Why didn't you go out to take your lunch in the same way?" 95. Govinda mentally replied, "My duty is to serve, even if I have to commit offenses or go to hell. I would not mind committing hundreds and thousands of offenses for the service of the Lord, but I greatly fear committing even a glimpse of an offense for my own self." 97. Thinking in this way, Govinda kept silent. He did not reply to the Lord's inquiry. It was Govinda's practice to go take lunch when the Lord was asleep. On that day, however, seeing the Lord's weariness, Govinda continued massaging his body. There was no way to go. How could he leave? When he thought of crossing over the Lord's body, he considered it a great offense. These are some of the finer points of etiquette in devotional service. Only one who has received the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu can understand these principles. Purport. Karmis, fruitive workers, cannot understand the finer conclusions of devotional service because they accept only its ritualistic value, but do not understand how devotional service satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Karmis view the formalities as a means of advancing in religion, economic development, sensual satisfaction, and liberation. Although these are only material results of following religious principles, the Karmis consider them everything. Such ritualistic activities are called karma. Karmis, who adopt devotional service very loosely and who therefore remain on the platform of material activities, are called prakrita sahajiyas. they cannot understand how pure devotional service is rendered in parental and conjugal love. For this can be understood only by the special mercy bestowed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu upon pure devotees. The Lord is very interested in manifesting the exalted qualities of His devotees, and that is why He engineered this incident. Thus I have briefly described Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing in the hall of the Jagannath temple. The servants of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sang about this dancing even now. The servants of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sing about this dancing even now. 103. Accompanied by his personal associates, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, washed and swept the Gundicha temple, cleansing it as usual. The Lord danced and chanted, and then enjoyed a picnic in the garden as he had done before. As previously, he danced in front of the Jagannath car and observed the festival of Hera Panchami. 106. All the devotees from Bengal stayed in Jagannath Puri for the 4 months of the rainy season and observed many other ceremonies, such as the anniversary of Lord Krishna's birth. Formerly, when all the devotees had arrived from Bengal, they desired to give Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu something to eat. Each devotee would bring a certain type of prasadam. He would entrust it to Govinda and request him, please arrange that the Lord will surely eat this prasadam. Some brought paida, a coconut preparation. Some brought sweet balls, and some brought cakes and sweet rice. The prasadam was of different varieties, all very costly. 110. Govinda would present the prasadam and say to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, this has been given by such and such devotee. The Lord, however, would not actually eat it. He would simply say, keep it in storage. Text 111. Govinda kept accumulating the food, and soon it filled a corner of the room. There was quite enough to feed at least 100 people. 112. All the devotees asked Govinda with great eagerness, have you given Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu the prasadam brought by me? 114. 113. When the devotees questioned Govinda, he had to tell them lies. Therefore, one day, he spoke to the Lord in disappointment. 114. Many respectable devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya, made a great endeavor to entrust me with varieties of food for you. You do not eat it, but they ask me again and again, how long shall I go on cheating them? How shall I be freed from this responsibility? Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, why are you so foolishly unhappy? Bring here to me whatever they have given you. Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that the word adivasya refers to one who has been living with another for a very long time. Govinda was addressed as adivasya because he had been living with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for a very long time, whereas other devotees, who were mostly new, would come and go. In effect, the Lord told Govinda, since you have been living with me for a long time, you should not be foolishly disappointed in this situation. Bring all the food to me, and you will see that I can eat it. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sat down to eat. Then Govinda offered him the preparations, one after another, and as he did so, he spoke the name of the person who had given each one. These preparations, paida, sweet rice, cakes made with cream, and also amrita gutika, manda, and a pot of camphor, have been given by Advaita Acharya. 119. Next, there are varieties of food, cakes, cream, amrita manda, and padmachini, given by Srivas Pandit. All these are gifts of Acharya Ratna, and these varieties of gifts are from Acharya Nidhi. And all these varieties of food have been given by Vasudev Datta, Murari Gupta, and Buddhimanta Khan. 122. These are gifts given by Sriman Sen, Sriman Pandit, and Nandana Acharya. Please eat them all. Here are the preparations made by the inhabitants of Kulinagram, and these have been made by the inhabitants of Kanda. In this way, Govinda gave everyone's name as he put the food before the Lord. Being very satisfied, the Lord began to eat it all. The hard sweets made of coconut, mukata narikela, the sweet balls, the many kinds of sweet drinks, and all the other preparations were at least a month old, but although they were old, they had not become tasteless or stale. Indeed, they had all stayed fresh. That is the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Within a very short time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate enough for 100 people. Then he asked Govinda, "Is there anything more left?" Govinda replied, "Now there are only the bags of Raghava." The Lord said, "Let them remain today. I shall see them later." The next day, while taking his bath in a secluded place, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu opened the bags of Raghava and inspected their contents, one after another. He tasted a little of everything they contained and praised it all for its flavor and aroma. All the varieties of the remaining prasadam were kept to eat throughout the year. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate his lunch, Swarup Damodar Goswami would serve it little by little. Sometimes Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would take some of it at night. The Lord certainly enjoys preparations made with faith and love by his devotees. Purport. Krishna is very pleased with his devotees and their offerings. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 9:26, the Lord says, "Patrang pushpang talang toyam yomi bhaktya prayachditi tadahang bhaktuparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha." If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Herein also we find that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted all this food because it had been offered by his devotees. Sometimes he would eat it during lunch and sometimes at night, but he would always think that since his devotees had offered it with great love and affection, he must eat it. Thus Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu spent the entire period of Chaturmasya, the 4 months of the rainy season, in the happiness of discussing topics of Krishna with his devotees. From time to time, Advaita Acharya and others would invite Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for home-cooked rice and varieties of vegetables. They offered pungent preparations made with black pepper, sweet and sour preparations, ginger, salty preparations, limes, milk, yogurt, sugar candy, 2 or 4 kinds of spinach, soup made with bitter melon, eggplant mixed with nimba leaves, and fried patola. They also offered pula badi, liquid mung dal, and many vegetables, all cooked according to the Lord's taste. They would mix these preparations with the remnants of food from Lord Jagannath. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the invitations, he went sometimes alone and sometimes with his associates. Devotees like Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Nandana Acharya, Raghava Pandit, Srivas were all of the Brahmana caste. They would extend invitations to the Lord. Vasudev Datta, Gadadhar Das, Murari Gupta, the inhabitants of Kulinagram and Kanda, and many other devotees who were not Brahmanas by caste would purchase food offered to Lord Jagannath and then extend invitations to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. The inhabitants of Kulinagram, such as Satyaraj Khan and Ramananda Vasu, were not Brahmanas by caste, nor were the inhabitants of Kanda, such as Mukunda Das, Narahari Das, and Raghunandana. Therefore they would purchase prasadam from the market, where the remnants of Lord Jagannath's food were sold, and then extend invitations to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Whereas Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, and others who were Brahmanas by caste would cook at home when they invited the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed the etiquette then current in society by accepting only prasadam cooked by members of the Brahmana caste. But on principle, he accepted invitations from his devotees, regardless of whether they were Brahmanas by caste. Now here, about the invitation Shivananda Sen extended to the Lord. His eldest son was named Caitanya Das. How many verses?
163.
163. Okay, we'll go for it. Now hear about the invitation Shivananda Sen extended to the Lord. His eldest son was named Caitanya Das. When Shivananda brought his son Caitanya Das to be introduced to the Lord, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu inquired about his name. When the Lord heard that his name was Caitanya Das, he said, "What kind of name have you given him? It is very difficult to understand." Shivananda Sen replied, "He has kept the name that appeared to me from within." Then he invited Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for lunch. Shivananda had brought very costly remnants of Lord Jagannath's food. He brought it in and offered it to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who sat down to accept the prasadam with his associates. Because of Shivananda Sen's glories, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate all kinds of prasadam to honor his request. However, the Lord ate more than necessary, and therefore his mind was dissatisfied. The next day, Caitanya Das, the son of Shivananda Sen, extended an invitation to the Lord. He could understand the Lord's mind, however, and therefore he arranged for a different kind of food. He offered yogurt, limes, ginger, soft bada, and salt. Seeing all these arrangements, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. Purport. By the grace of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Caitanya Das understood the Lord's mind. Therefore he arranged for food that would counteract the heavy meal the Lord had eaten the previous day. Later in life, Caitanya Das became a very learned Sanskrit scholar and wrote many books. Among these books, his commentary on Caitanya-caritämrta is very famous. There is another book called Caitanya-caritämrta, which is a work of Sanskrit poetry. It is said that this was also composed by him. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "This boy knows my mind. Therefore I am very satisfied to accept his invitation." After saying this, the Lord ate the rice mixed with yogurt and offered Caitanya Das the remnants of his food. The 4 months of Chaturmasya passed in this manner, with the Lord accepting invitations from his devotees. Because of a heavy schedule of invitations, however, some of the Vaishnavas could not get an open day on which to invite the Lord. Every month, Gadadhar Pandit and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had fixed dates on which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would accept their invitations. Gopinath Acharya, Jagadananda, Kashishwara, Bhagavan, Ramabhadra Acharya, Shankar, and Bakreshwar, who were all Brahmanas, extended invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and offered him food cooked at home, whereas other devotees would pay 2 panas of small conch shells to purchase Jagannath Prasādam and then invite the Lord. At first, the cost of Jagannath Prasādam for an invitation was 4 panas of conch shells, but when Ramachandra Puri was there, the price was cut in half. The devotees came from Bengal, stayed with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 4 consecutive months, and then the Lord bade them farewell. After the Bengali devotees departed, the devotees who were the Lord's constant companions at Jagannath Puri stayed with the Lord. Thus I have described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted invitations and how he accepted and tasted the prasadam offered by his devotees. 159. In the midst of that narration are descriptions of Raghavat Pandit's bags of food and the dancing in the temple of Jagannath. One who hears about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with faith and love will certainly attain ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without fail. Narrations of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities are just like nectar to hear. Indeed, they satisfy both the ears and mind. One who tastes the nectar of these activities is certainly very fortunate. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pariyara Ash, Caitanya-caritämrta, Kahe, Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Antya-līlā, chapter 10th chapter, describing how Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tasted the prasadam offered by his devotees. Jai! Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes with Govinda, with Shivananda Sain, with Raghava Pandit and Damayanti, and all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the wonderful condiments in the bags of Raghava Jali. Hare Krishna. Okay, we got through another chapter. Hare Krishna. The pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hearing them is non-different from being there. So our goal is to hear these pastimes and to actually be there in the pastimes. Just like our goal of chanting Hare Krishna is to chant with the realization that Krishna is there when we chant Hare Krishna. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is repeatedly telling us how fortunate we are to be able to hear the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if we hear them with faith and love, surely we will attain the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's have some reflections and comments and discussions, whatever. Hare Krishna.
First is something from Braj Ballabha.
Braj Ballabha's first off the blocks, every time. He's the most eager.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Glories to Prabhupada, glories to you.
You have often said we should try to see our lives and how we think about things through the view of Shastra. I am wondering if you can speak about how we can view our own devotional service and improvement through the Shastra. In other words, how Krishna views our progress.
Well, it's not mechanical. It's not stereotyped. Each person is different. So when we hear the pastimes, especially the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we should enrich ourselves by deeply appreciating them, by tasting the different tastes of the devotees and how they are serving Lord Chaitanya and how Lord Chaitanya understands when they understand his mind. And by doing that, we should try to be following. We should follow in their footsteps and try to apply them into our daily activities. How we speak to one another, how we see things in general. That's the way. It's not exactly something that we mechanically do inside ourselves. It comes naturally as we hear and appreciate, and as our faith and love for the Lord deepens, and as we hear these things and deeply appreciate the devotees and their loving exchanges and the Lord's reciprocation with them, then as we do that, then our hearts soften, and as our hearts soften, then we are able to see the glories of devotional service. But it doesn't mean that we think we're like them. We see them and we know who we are, and we feel very humbled. So the more humble we become, the more we become eligible for love of Krishna. Sanatana Goswami explains this in the 5th chapter of the 2nd part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. I was thinking about reading the Brihad Bhagavatamrita after the Caitanya-caritämrta. That way we'd have all of them, recorded for posterity's sake. But anyway, there in the 5th chapter, it's described that dainya, or utter humility, the state of consciousness in which we feel ourselves as lesser than all other devotees, and even in the final stage, lesser than all other living beings. We see everyone else as devotees except for ourselves. And in that state of humility, our hearts melt and we achieve prema, love for Krishna. But dainya, utter humility, is called the essential prerequisite for prema. But the causal and effectual relationship between the two is so intimate that they are not different from one another. In other words, you can't have prema without dainya, and you can't have dainya without prema. They're the same. So the effect of hearing about the pastimes of the Lord is to become more and more gradually humble. Seeing the greatness of the Lord and the greatness of his devotees and the depth and intimacy and the nuances of their feelings for one another and how they show those feelings to one another. And then according to our capacity, we have to do that with one another. Hare Krishna.
Another comment from Prabhupada.
Haribol Braj.
He says, sometimes when I hear the pastimes, I want to cry. It is so sweet, and also because I realize what I am missing out on in this material world.
That feeling of separation is the goal. You keep serving like that, keep hearing like that, and you'll get there. Sorry, I interrupted.
He says, sorry Maharaj, as you know, I am mechanical. I am very fortunate to have you guiding me through this ugly material, crow-like material world.
Yeah, I've been keeping track a little bit of what's going on in America, and it is truly stunning how human beings can treat one another, and how much hate and vitriol and vile consciousness can come from this material energy. Hare Krishna. So we should consider ourselves so fortunate that we're not swept up in that hate, that's sweeping the world right now. Hare Krishna. We're so fortunate.
Next is something from Krishnangi Mulder.
Hare Krishna, Krishnangi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I felt touched by the mention of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, his intention to create opportunities for the devotee to develop certain qualities. Maharaj, would you elaborate on this? Thank you.
What can I say more than the pastime of Lord Govinda we just heard about, of Govinda with Lord Chaitanya? He purposefully laid in front of the full doorway, so Govinda couldn't go inside and rub his legs, massage his legs. And when he asked him to move, he said, I can't move my body. And he's the Supreme Personality of God, and he can do anything. So he just arranged it like that, so that Govinda could show the exalted etiquette of being willing to offend, because it's an offense to step over a person. Even when we're walking, when people are sitting on the floor, a lot of people, and we have to walk through one place to another, sometimes devotees just step over them. This is not good. It's an offense, actually. But you just put your hand down and let them move their legs so you can walk without stepping over them. That's the etiquette. So then, he very carefully covered him with his covering cloth, and then he stepped over. So he didn't actually step, he did, but he didn't. So he got at the other side, he massaged his legs for longer than normal, because the Lord was particularly tired because of the kirtan. And then when he woke up, he said, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be eating. Why didn't you? He said, I couldn't leave because you were laying in the doorway. He said, well, how did you get in here then? He said, look, he didn't say it. He just thought it, because he didn't want to put the Lord into anxiety. So he just thought it. He must have told it to Sri Damodar, therefore it got in the book. But he thought, I don't care if I commit an offense in order to do service for you. But to do service for myself, or to serve myself by stepping over you to go and take Prasādam, that would be, I can't bear the thought, so I didn't. So in this way, the Lord made arrangements himself, like he made arrangements for Sanatana Goswami to have that, to come in contact with that bad water in Jharkhanda and get those itching sores, in order to show him, special mercy, and to glorify his qualities. So this is the nature of devotional service in the spiritual world. The devotees are always trying to please the Lord, and the Lord is always trying to please the devotees. And there's a constant competition going on, and it never ends. And that's the nature of life in the spiritual world. It's full of enriched beautiful, sweet feelings and loving relationships. That's what life is. So we get an idea of what life is supposed to be by hearing these pastimes. And as we do that for a whole lifetime, keep hearing, keep hearing, keep hearing. And at the end of our life, hopefully, absorbed in the hearing. And then we can taste these things and behave like that in our ordinary dealings. And you can't behave like that with ordinary people. You can only behave like this with devotees. Therefore, at the end, we cannot live with anyone except for the devotees. We can't associate with anyone except devotees. Hare Krishna.
Krishnangi also comments, Maharaj, I have heard many times that Krishna accepts offerings that are offered with love and devotion. Hearing today he accepts with faith and love, I am reflecting upon the quality of Krishna and appreciating, and Krishna valuing the devotee's endeavor.
Very nice, thank you.
From Vrindavaneshwari Devi Dasi, she says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Vrindavaneshwari, Hari Bo.
Wow, thank you so much for another inspiring reading. Inspiring in the sense of offering foodstuff to Krishna and sharing Prasādam. Holidays make it easier to distribute Prasādam. I look forward to sharing Prasādam with colleagues for Valentine's Day. As you've mentioned, if you can't preach, just give them Prasādam.
Thank you so much, and continue that loving service. It's your pathway back to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya, Mahāprabhu, and his associates.
And from Bhakta-ben.
Haribo Bhakta-ben, Hare Krishna.
He says, to hear Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita with you would make my year, Maharaj. I heard a series of lectures by you on it last year during the first lockdown, whilst delivering flyers for our Food for Life project for several hours per day. Very happy memories.
Hare Krishna.
And then from Vrajaloka Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Vrajaloka.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. It was so wonderful to hear about the loving exchanges of the Lord and his devotees. This part was full of nectar. It was really heart-melting to hear the writings of Damayanti's devotion and the pastime with Govinda when he massaged his feet, and I was especially touched by the love and care that Lord Chaitanya showered on his devotees. We are so fortunate because we can taste the nectar of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes through your deep and mature realizations. Thank you so much for sharing with us this nectar. Your servant, Vrajaloka Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
P.S.
Yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are an ocean of nectar. She said what?
P.S. Today I also understood that we are titled as a kitchen religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Krishnangi Mother says, Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
And Rati Manjari says, yes, dear Guru Maharaj, please read Brihad Bhagavatamrita after this.
Okay, that settles it. Hare Krishna. Jai. All glories to the devotees. All glories to hearing the pastimes of the Lord with the devotees. This is the way to become happy in this world. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic. Right here in the live studios in the Haven. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.